So last week, you shut off Facebook.
I did shut off Facebook.
And it seems like you inspired a few people anyway, to do the same.
But a few cheated because they said they got off Facebook, but they're still on Instagram and Twitter.
I decided not to give up sweets after all.
Okay.
Because, I prayed about it and I felt the Lord saying I should give up broccoli instead. So I decided to join everybody else and let's ditch social media for a little while. And I caught myself just by habit going to Facebook a couple times. I had to take it off my phone.
I had this habit of hitting this app, and then that was there, and it's not there. I think stuff's going on. It's just I'm not aware of it, and pretty happy that I'm not aware of it.
It's just been a reminder when I reach for my phone, I realize there's nothing to do on it. I go, I'm going to read a little bit. I checked out this next week's Word of Relationship.
Mm-hmm.
When I first looked at that, I wondered if this was kind of like, this is classic, like bait and switch techniques. Like we're talking about some serious Lent stuff,
Yep.
High theology, Jesus on the cross, atoning for our sins, and now we're going to talk about
family
relationships and family. And my first question is like, is this just a setup, or is there really some content there about relationships and family?
I have sort of the same experience. You're reading this, and we've got the cross. What does the atonement mean? We've got it is finished coming up. Okay, so that means all this other background stuff. And it's sort of almost an odd overhearing in the middle of it. Oh, and by the way, as Jesus sees his mother being the firstborn son and having some responsibility, I think this actually has a lot to do with a theological thing called incarnation. Jesus was born. We're used to the baby in the manger, no crying he makes, but he had to have his diaper changed, and as he was growing up, he had to learn how to walk. He had to, they had to do laundry. They had to make meals. He learned a trade. He had to work. We don't see him as an adult until he's about 30 years old. This thing of taking care of his family, by this time, apparently Joseph is deceased, and Jesus is responsible. So it's almost his last will and testament while he's doing all this massive stuff for the salvation of the world. He says to his mother, and he doesn't call her mom, he calls her woman, which sounds kind of abrupt to us.
Yeah, I tried that at home, it didn't work.
No, it doesn't work. But see, the other time he spoke about his mother in that way was back at Cana, where the miracle of the water turned into wine, and he called her a woman, and he said, my hour has not come. But now clearly his hour has come. Mm-hmm. And so this is that time. So, and John, the disciple, he apparently is taking the role, even though he's not a son of Mary. Jesus is making sure she's cared for, and it says, there's a little editorial comment, and after that, he took her into his house. So for you and me, we're just talking about let's do big Jesus-y kind of things. Well, the big Jesus-y kind of thing is let's take care of our families and the close relationships to us, including relationships that we don't have because they're by blood, if you'd say, or adoption. It's just they're a close relationship, and we care for one another.
The word of relationship is not this really, profound thing that Jesus said from the cross. It's really sort of like housekeeping.
It's the fourth commandment: honor your father and your mother. That's what he's doing. Jesus is pulling off essentially an adoption here. This is your mom. This is your son, and he goes. So for those of us who have caregiving things, we have kids that drive us crazy, there's too much to do, there's not enough time, or we're caring for aging parents or any of those kinds of things, or we have a spouse who is ill and we feel like that keeps us from doing whatever it is we're supposed to do in life. That is life. That is life. And it's blessed by God. Martin Luther said, if a person doesn't understand in changing a diaper that they're doing God's will, they don't understand God's will.
For those who family is conflict and strife and hurt, they come to church, and then we say, guess what? We're a family too, which is sort of like compounding the issue for some folks.
Right.
So how can we paint a better picture for those folks for them, family is sort of a bad word?
Jesus had also said when his family came to get him, because they thought he was losing his mind and they wanted to get him away, that his real family are those who do the will of his Father in heaven. And so I extend that to mean that sometimes the family we're born into is a catastrophe. But the community of believers becomes a place of being refamilied or in relationships that can, in some ways, I don't know if it makes up all of the deficits, but we can learn that we can be loved unconditionally, we can be forgiven, there can be a second chance, and we learn about grace through relationships, even if the family that we were raised in didn't know anything about that. My brother Dave and I have a comment we make from time to time, and that is, you don't get to choose the family you're born into, but as a believer, you get to choose the family you're going to hang out with. And I think that's true, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. And since we're talking about family, you've added one this week.
We did. Yeah, little Sierra Florence. And speaking of family, so our family is made up by birth and adoption. So this is an adopted daughter who had a child with her husband Greg, and yet took a middle name of my mother, who was the adopted child's grandmother. So the fun part of Sierra is Linda and I can say, if there's anything that's a difficulty genetically with this kid, it's not about us. We had nothing to do with it.
That's true.
We had nothing to do with it. But anyway, I just think that, family happens in a lot of ways, and sometimes it's bonds of love, not bonds of genetics and genes.
All right. Well, next week we're going to have Pastor Caesar.
That's correct.
Because you're going to be out of the country.
Yep.
With some of our folks from church. We'll miss you, those of you that are going, but we'll have Caesar here to tell us about our next words.
And we'll try to do a word on relationship stuff posted from Israel.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with that.
Yeah. All right. So thanks for watching. And if you have any of your own thoughts on this topic, go ahead and leave them
in the comments.
And we'll see you
All right.
next week.
See you Sunday.
All right.